Good morning, nearly good afternoon. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to Advertising Week Europe 2017. I am delighted to introduce our next guest, who I believe is still the only vicar in the UK to have enjoyed a #1 single way back when with Don't Leave Me This Way with the Coming Arts back in 86, Richard?
86, yeah, 31 years ago. Although Peter Skellern had a #3 and he was ordained 6 months before he died.
#3? Who cares about... No. Anyway, it's the Reverend Richard Coles, as you've probably guessed by now. You've been talking, very interesting topic this morning here at AW Week Europe, about reinventing yourself. And I guess, looking at your story, you've been through several reinventions.
Yeah, more than Doctor Who. Yeah, I mean, well, in a way, it's a sort of return. What I'm doing now just seems very far from adventures in pop music in the 1980s. But actually, I started as a chorister, so in a way, I've been kind of going around in a big circle, I think.
And what was the key moment for you? I mean, having read your book, I mean, brought up in Northampton, obviously you got into the pop music world almost by default, I guess, in a way, didn't you?
Fell into it, yeah. Just lucky. I like lots of kind of gay teenagers in the 80s. I ran away to London. I met Jimmy Somerville, who, like me, was also a gay runaway to London. And we kind of became friends and started working together. And I was just really lucky that he had this spectacular gift of a wonderfully distinctive and original voice. Because I'd trained in a choir, I had a kind of musical background, so those two things came together. And we caught a sort of rising tide of London was changing a lot there, new subcultures. It was a very exciting time to be in London and doing things.
That's many wonderful moments in that book, but when you actually hit the big time and you're getting crates of champagne from the likes of Elton John, I mean, that's a long way from being brought up in Northampton, I guess.
We didn't get many crates of champagne in Kettering from Elton John, or from anybody, in fact. No, it was, and it's that sort of life-transforming thing. It's like a lottery win. If you're in a successful pop band, it just happens so quickly. And then it's all about trying to just hold on and stand up at the same time as the world shifts very rapidly around you.
It's a very honest account, because you did get quite fed up with all the attention that Jimmy was getting, and you were kind of virtually ignored, weren't you?
I know I remember one time signing someone's autograph book, and then they saw Jimmy coming, and they literally tore the autograph book, and there's just this kind of scribble of biro where my signature should have been, because they were desperately trying to get Jimmy's. And I think living in a shadow cast by a spectacular person is often very difficult, but actually, you get over that.
And also, of course, during that time, you talked about what you referred to as Auntie Ada, of course, the AIDS, and losing so many friends to that.
Yeah, I mean, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. The best of times in that we were lucky to be successful, not only commercially, but also it felt like a vindication. We were standing up for gay rights, for visibility for gay people, that kind of thing. But because of who we were, when we were absolutely hit like a train by HIV/AIDS when that arrived, sort of 85, 86. And that was a profoundly changing experience for anyone who was involved in that, I think.
And talk me through the time when you found yourself at that service in Holborn here in London, and that really was a pivotal moment for you, wasn't it, in terms of reinventing yourself and getting you onto the path you're on now?
I mean, in lots of ways, it was a very long and difficult journey to get from what I was doing then to what I'm doing now. But there was a kind of moment, a defining moment in it, when I went into a church as a sort of curious and slightly hostile spectator. And then what I encountered there just... everything changed, and I came out a participant, and I've been a participant ever since. But in retrospect, of course, it had been coming along for a very long time, so it wasn't something that completely came out of the blue. But there did have to be a sort of moment of realization that this was definitive.
Do you think you'd be as good at what you do now had you not gone through those years and those pop years in the 1980s? Has it helped you?
Well, I'd like to think so, for other people to judge how good I am at what I do. But I think a lot of what I'm doing now is reaping what I sowed then. And stuff you realise comes to fruition that you weren't particularly even being aware of was growing. So that's true, I think. And I think I've also been lucky, and that's really important.
And of course the session was about reinvention. Do you actually feel you've reinvented yourself, or are these things kind of happened and you've reacted to what's happened in your life? It wasn't a conscious decision to reinvent yourself, or was it?
I mean, one or two key moments in my life when I've realised, against my nature, which is quite timid, that I had to do something really committed and positive. One of them was come out, actually. It was a big thing. And the other thing was was start going to church and getting involved with that. So in a way, those two things were quite similar. So I'm conscious that there's a sort of continuity between them. But then you never really reinvent yourself. What you do, is you reconfigure yourself to a world that changes around you, but always with the same elements within you. So in a way, I kind of feel I sort of gone back to where I began, but in a new way.
And if you can, what advice would you give to anybody here during this week who maybe is thinking about reinventing themselves, maybe thinking about taking a completely new path?
Don't be afraid of fear. It's to make any kind of big significant change in your life always involves considerable risk, and that always produces anxiety. But use that anxiety to fuel what you do and to give you some energy and to kind of keep your head up. Don't let it become something that kind of makes you stumble. Use it as fuel.
I couldn't let you go, as a dog lover myself, without asking you about the Dachshunds. How are they? And they're keeping you busy, keeping you fit?
Endlessly. They're very good. We've got four sausage dogs. We did have 7 at one point, 3 puppies, but they've gone to new homes. 4 is plenty. But yeah, no, they are the joy of my life.
Well, Richard, thank you very much for joining us today. I do enjoy the rest of the event. And of course, you can catch up with Richard's interview and the rest of them here by following #AWEurope.